Today our class will end a little bit early, probably 12:40, because I need to go to the mosque for Jummah prayer, and then I need to go to the restroom and make a wudu. Just for today, we need to. I mean, we stop early at 12:40. So the topic today is about Muslim scholars. What we call in Arabic ulama is a plural form for alim, and their discourse on the military coup, with specific case the Egyptian coup taking place in 2013. Basically, what I'm trying to explain in my guest lecture today is how Muslim scholars respond to political turmoil, which is in this case military coup, by number one, invoking intellectual history. The specific term referring to intellectual history in Arabic is called At-Turath al-Islami. So how they invoke intellectual history, and then how they engage with Western political concepts, and how their discourse has been supported by the global actors. And I will state my argument upfront, so you know overall, summary overall position of mine. The so-called ulama grapple with the conundrum of how to understand Islamic intellectual tradition in the modern context. And at the same time, wittingly or unwittingly, they predicate their thought on Western conception of legitimacy. And this is the existing research on the ulama's discourse on military coup in Egypt. We have two contentions. Number one, what I frame as, epistemic replication. The so-called ulama just repeat the old classical medieval discourse on military coup. There is nothing new in their discourse. Just total, exactly the same thing. And on the other hand, we have also researchers who are saying that, oh, their discourse is actually cut off. There is a break from medieval or classical discourse on usurpation of power. Their discourse is mainly shaped by political situation, their political interest, and Western political concept of legitimacy. And my position is that ulama actually always combine. I mean, they always try to base their thought on Islamic tradition, and at the same time, they always respond to the modern political conception of democracy. So my argument is that tradition and modernity are intertwining each other in shaping the discourse of the ulama on the military coup. This is four main topics that I'm going to explain. Number one, just a brief background, the events in Egypt that led to, the removal, the military coup against the president, and then just also a historical background, intellectual background, how pre-modern ulama, formulate their idea on the military coup. And then my main topic will be really on the discourses on 2013 military coup by at least two competing, positions. And then if we have time, I try to compare their epistemologies. And then after 1 hour giving a lecture, we'll stop, make a break, and then for probably 7-10 minutes, we will see if Dr. Mira coming with the answer from Khulud, then you can present your video. Otherwise, I'll open the Q&A for this class. All right. Muhammad Mursi, he is the one who is overthrown by military power in Egypt. He became president in 2012. But then ousted in 2013, July 3, and it happened after a series of intense events. The most important of which is people protests throughout Egypt. I mean, the supporters of the coup claim that 30 million people went to the street demanding the withdrawal, the resignation of Morsi. And then another significant factor of the coup is the crisis of energy, even security, political crisis, diplomatic crisis. And then a few days before the coup, General Abdul Fattah Assisi make an announcement that Morsi need to answer the demand, the request from the people, and then he gave an ultimatum, and finally, because Morsi didn't do anything, he announced that Muhammad Morsi is no longer a president. And when he made that announcement, he was backed up by three religious figures, I may say. Number one is Sheikhul Azhar, or the rector of Al Azhar, the most important, person in terms of Islamic establishment in Egypt. And then the elite of An-Nur party, which is a Salafi political party. And then the third one is the an elite from Coptic church. So three persons were standing behind him, giving a support to the coup. But my talk will not examine these three people. I will instead explain the discourses of these five clerics, you might say, or scholars. Anybody knows who they are? Qaradawi. Qaradawi is late Qaradawi. He was the president of International Union of Muslim Scholars. And then the second one, anybody knows? Muhammad Ruslan is a Salafi preacher. If you are not familiar with the term Salafi, I will explain later on. And then the third person, anybody knows? Ali Gum'ah, with Egyptian dialect, Ali Gum'ah, otherwise Ali Jum'ah. He was the former mufti of the country from 2003 until 2013. And then the fourth person, anybody knows? Khalid Abu Fadil. He is Egyptian American scholar living in Los Angeles, a professor of Islamic law, Muslim jurist, teaching in UCLA. And the last one is Yasir Burhami. He's the head of Salafi party in Egypt. It's called An-Nur party. Well, I'll start from intellectual history as the background. The word coup in Arabic can have several terms referring to it. Number one, this is the most used term in Islamic intellectual history, is at-taghallub. At-taghallub. Number two, al-istila bishauka, or al-istila al-imara bishauka, and then al-istizhar, as-saytarah, and this is modern Arabic, al-inqilab. Al-inqilab. So the problem of military coup d'etat is actually the perennial problem in Islamic political thought. And this is my argument in my PhD thesis. Muslim political history is always grappling with the issue of military coup, because it happened in the first century of Islam and still happen in the modern period. And the earliest coup happening in Islamic history was done by the fifth caliph of the Umayyad, by the name of Abdul Malik bin Marwan. He did a coup against the caliph of the time, who is also a companion of the Prophet, Abdullah bin Zubair. and it happened in the year 73 after the migration of the Prophet. Anybody familiar with the name Abdul Malik or Abdullah bin Zubair? Familiar? Yeah. So this is the first coup happening in Islam, and then will constitute as a foundation for, the next centuries of intellectual tradition in Islam. And this is the political stance of Muslim companion at that time by the name Abdullah ibn Umar. He is actually what's that?
Either the Arabic word used for coup.
At-Taghallub.
What's the difference between that and khuruj?
Khuruj?
Yeah.
No, khuruj is rebellion. To rebel is not necessarily to overthrow the ruler. But a taghallub or coup d'etat is an act of rebellion but ended up successful. So the ruler already being ousted. But khuruj is still in the process. That is the main difference. Okay, I will highlight this specific statement. A stance taken by Abdullah bin Umar. Nahnu ma'a man ghalab. We side with whoever win, the political contestation. He himself is always in neutral position, but whoever win the competition, I will be with him. And this particular statement will be, recalled, will be invoked by jurists in the subsequent centuries, including the one happening in Egypt in 2013 by the supporters of the coup. Oh, okay. Just very, very brief information. Abdullah bin Zubair is actually the grandson of Abu Bakar, the first caliph, the first successor of the Prophet Muhammad, and he is also, he is the child of Asma binti Abu Bakar and Zubair bin Awam. Okay. This is actually my second chapter in my thesis. I did investigation on how the discourse of usurpation of power evolved over time. The period of formation, the stance of four eponyms of legal schools, early Mu'tazilah theologians, Al-Jahiz, and then how that the medieval period, it entered the period of what I call systematization and discursive pluralism. And then finally, in the medieval period, it ended up in the period of synchronization and simplification. To make it short, because this is not my main point, the discourse of usurpation in traditional Islamic political thought, by the 7th century, it has been commonly accepted by jurists from different schools of legal thought. So always no jurist problematize the idea of at-taghallub or inqilab or al-istila. They accept it as a reality. The reason why they accept it, because for them, the leadership of usurpers of the army who take over the power is better than living in chaos. So always in their mind, if they don't justify the military coup, something bad, bloodshed will take place. So the logic is always the lesser of two evils. Irtikab akhafud dararain. And also, this is from the perspective of Islamic legal history, Muslim jurists tend to avoid civil chaos or fitna, and they tend to follow legal precedent because the previous jurists before them already make the same thing, the same formulation. Even the companion Abdullah bin Umar take that position, then what they do is, just following the precedent. And by, we can say, 15th century of a common era, we already have 3 established methods to select a ruler. Number 1, or what we call as a testamentary designation. Testamentary designation. So a father give the throne to his son, a brother to his younger brother. That's what I mean as a testamentary designation. But in early history, the designation doesn't happen from a father to son. This method was used by Abu Bakar, the first successor of the Prophet, and he gave it not to his son, but another companion by the name of Umar, the second caliph. But throughout Islamic history, there's nothing changed. What happened is just, inheritance from a father to a son, from brother to younger brother. And the second method, again, this is the established method by the 15th century of Common Era, election by a committee. It happened with the case of Osman. Omar selects 6 companions, and then they make a consultation, they discuss, and they select Osman as the next caliph, the third caliph after Omar. And these 2 methods in the books of Islamic political thought is always theoretical, formulation, almost never been applied in Islamic history. I mean, especially this one, because what happened is always inheritance from the father to the son. And the third method is at-taghallub, or usurpation of power or military coup. In 15th century, or even before, by the scholar of Ibn al-Jama'ah, even the teacher of the Ibn al-Jama'ah, Imam al-Nawawi, Muhyiddin al-Nawawi, accepted usurpation of power or military coup as a formal method to establish a rulership. So whoever take a power by military coup, then we need to pay our, we need to respect him. We accept him. This is the background of my talk today, Islamic intellectual history. And all the ulama who engaged with the military coup in Egypt in 2013 will invoke this concept of at-taghallub from Islamic legal doctrine, from the book of fiqh. Now, this is the backbone, the main topic of my lecture today. We have 2 groups with regard to the validity or the legitimacy of the coup in Egypt in 2013. The first group is the supporters of the coup, and the second group is the deniers of the coup. I mean, in Egypt, most of the scholars, this is what I assume, they are supporting the coup because they are under, hegemony of the state. Even though if they disagree, they have to hide it. I just mentioned 3 persons. 3% representing 3 different rationalities, 3 different modalities of thinking. And the deniers of the coup, mainly they live outside Egypt, and there are many of them. I just select 2 scholars. Number 1 is Al-Qardawi, number 2, Khalid Abu Fadil. Ali Jum'ah is representing neo-traditionalists, and Yasir Burhami, Muhammad Said Ruslan is representing Salafi, even though they are from different sub-strand of Salafi. Salafi is just a big umbrella. Within the Salafism, there are so many subdivision or groups. And then Yusuf Al-Qaradawi is representation of an Islamist voice. And I don't know how to classify Khalid Abu Fadil. Of course, he's not Salafi. He's a very critical to Salafi. He's not traditional, neo-traditionalist. He's not Islamist. I will say he is a pro-democracy. Now, I want to elaborate your opinion. Anybody knows what the neo-traditionalist is? Neo-traditionalist. Traditionalist basically a scholar who emphasize their discourse on tradition. Basically, what considered as a tradition is three things. Number one, in terms of legal methodology. Neo-traditionalist is a scholar who adhere to one of schools of legal thought. And what are those four schools? Please remind me.
School of jurisprudence like
Yes.
Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali.
Hanbali. All right. Number one, Hanafi. We need to mention Hanafi as the first legal school because Abu Hanifa is the oldest one. And then number two, Maliki. Number three, Shafi'i. Number four, Hanbali. So neo-traditionalists believe that we need to follow a certain legal thought. We need to be a follower, a certain jurist. And number two, in terms of theology, because in Islamic tradition, there are schools of theology as well. The most prominent one probably Ash'ari, and then Maturidi, and then Athari. Well, Athari is not really considered as a school by neo-traditionalists because they are considered as a literalist. But basically, neo-traditionalists believe that we need to be Ash'ari or Maturidi followers. Maturidi theology is commonly embraced by Muslims in Turkey, in Central Asia. Ash'ari is a theology commonly followed by Muslims in Southeast Asia, in Egypt, of course, because Egypt itself is Ash'ari, seminary, and then where else? At least Egypt and then South Asia. I don't know in other Arab countries. In South Asia between Ash'ari and Maturidi. And then neo-traditionalists also believe in Sufism. They have a positive view of Sufism, and they are the follower of a certain Sufi order. So this is the three common features or characteristic of neo-traditionalists. And this is the representation of neo-traditionalists. And we will look at how he formulated his opinion regarding the removal of Mursi. He himself is Egyptian. He was a mufti from 2003 until 2013. And then he is a professor of Islamic law until now. He's known for the project of revitalization of Islamic intellectual heritage, or the so-called At-Turath al-Islami.
What's a mufti?
What is that?
What's a mufti?
Mufti is a scholar in charge of giving legal opinion, but he is appointed by a state. In Muslim state, there is only one mufti, but not all Muslim state has a mufti. Like Indonesia is not an Islamic country like Egypt. Egypt has a mufti, but Indonesia doesn't have a mufti. Malaysia, interestingly, has 9 muftis because Malaysia is kingdom, consists of 9 minor kingdoms, and each minor kingdom has its own mufti. So mufti will always be influential in shaping people discourse, opinion. And mufti is always appointed by a state. his authority coming from the state. I would say he's even civil servant. You know, we'll start from his fatwa. Again, this is a technical term. Fatwa is legal opinion. It's not binding, but if it is coming out from influential person, it will be shaping people's opinion. In 2011, when the revolution erupted, people went to the street demanding the withdrawal of Hosni Mubarak. He issued a statement that this protest caused the fitna. Fitna is discord, is split the people. So don't go to the street, just follow the order, follow our president. But it ended up Hosni Mubarak resigning from his position as president. And by contrast, in 2013, there was a big protest. I mentioned earlier, some people claim 30 million people went to the street demanding the resignation. And interestingly, Ali Jum'ah gave the support to this fatwa. He support Tamarud. And this is the most controversial fatwa of him in 2013. So after the coup, after the announcement of the coup by the military leader, there was a crackdown, even massacre against the followers of the president, the ousted president, who insisted about the restoring the legitimacy of Mursi. And after a month being in the street, then people get bored, and then military get bored. Fatwa issued by, legal opinion issued by Ali Jum'ah is that you are allowed to kill the people who are in the street insisting for the restoration of Mursi's presidency. Even they call them as Khawarij. It carries very negative meaning in Islamic intellectual tradition. It refers to the rebels and even the dogs of the hellfire, Kilab An-Nar, and then kill them, they sting. And Tuba liman qatalahum, blessed are those who kill them. But this fatwa issued after the coup itself. And this is what I'm going to highlight. His reasoning to justify, to legalize the coup. He developed several strategies. Number one, he used historical precedent from the history of modern Saudi Arabia. Anybody familiar with the history of modern Saudi Arabia? Who is the modern founder of Saudi Arabia? King Abdul Aziz. King Abdul Aziz passed away, and he designated his son by the name of Saud. And the King Saud is ousted by his brother, very famous king, by the name of King Faisal. And this ouster, this coup by King Faisal against King Saud is used by Jum'ah, Ali Jum'ah, to justify the removal of Muhammad Mursi. And he said that the Mufti of Saudi Arabia back then, by the name of Muhammad bin Ibrahim, authorized the removal of King Saud. So I have a legal precedent, a Mufti before me, justifying the coup. Even though King Faisal himself will ended up tragically, he stabbed by one person and passed away because of being stabbed. So this is the first rationality, reason how he justified the coup. Number two, he used the concept again from Islamic intellectual tradition called al-Imam al-Mahjur, or detained ruler. And this is what he claims. A medieval scholar by the name Al-Juwayni He's a Persian scholar, very famous as the rector of, Nizamiya College in, Persian, in a Persian area at that time. The teacher of Al-Ghazali, Al-Juwayni, this is his claim, made a legal doctrine that any incapable ruler can be detained by an army because of his incapacity. Because you are not capable, then you will be locked here, then someone else will take over, will be in charge of the caliphate. And I will explain later that this claim is not correct. And his opponent, Yusuf al-Qaradawi, criticized him for distorting Islamic intellectual legacy, because this is not what Al-Juwayni says in his book Ghiyathul Umam. And the third reason for him to justify the coup is that the Egyptian army always acting in the history of the country as a national hero. So the notion of the charisma of the army had never harmed the Egyptian people. They protect them. The army permanently removes all forms of injustice and punish rebels. What they are doing is an action that God always guides. So even with the massacres of more than 1,000 people, it is a guidance from the God. This is the claim made by Ali Juma. He quotes, I don't know, are you familiar with the concept of hadith? The second source of authority in Islam after the Holy Book, after the Quran, and the saying, the action, the acting of the Prophet Muhammad is called hadith, and he quote the hadith. Not all hadiths are reliable. Some of them are forged or weak, falsified, and he quoted 3 weak hadiths to justify, atrocity by the army. You can read this one. From Amr bin Ibn al-Haq, he narrates that I heard the messenger of God says, there will be civil strife. The safest people in it will be the Western army, Ajundul Ghorbi. And Ibn al-Hamaq said, this is what I have come to you in Egypt. The second report, second hadith. It is reported through Yazid bin Abi Habib that the Prophet said, there will be civil strife that encompasses you, everyone except the Western army. This is the hadith that he used to justify the coup. And the next justification, what I call as a supra-constitutional legitimacy. He made a claim, 30 million people went to the street. And this is the source of illegitimacy of Morsi. People don't want him to be a president anymore. And he quote again another hadith. It's called As-Sawat al-A'zam, the overwhelming majority. For him, 30 million protesters is the same as overwhelming majority. This is the hadith that he quotes. إِذَا رَأَيْتُمْ إِخْتِلَافًا فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالسَّوَّاتِ الْعَظَمِ. If you see disagreement among people, you have to side with the overwhelming majority. So go with the tamarud. Go with the protesters who are against Morsi. And this is the global link of Ali Juma. Anybody familiar with the Sheikh Hamzah Yusuf? Not the first minister of Scotland. Same name, different person. Anybody knows where he is now? Hamzah Yusuf? United States, in California. He's the president of Zaytuna College. And anybody knows who is this cleric? Habib Ali Jifri or Jufri, the student of Ali Juma, is Yemeni Saudi scholar but living in UAE. Is a founding institute called Toba Institute. Right after the massacre of the followers of Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, he appeared in the public media to support the position of Ali Jum'ah. And then this cleric, Abdullah bin Baya. My research that I'm doing now with Al-Walid is about his discourse on unjust ruler, and I'm comparing his position with the position of Al-Ghazali. He's Mauritanian scholar, but now being the Mufti, again, the word Mufti, I'm using it, in UIE. And he is establishing this institution, Al-Muntada li Ta'zizi Salam fil Mujtama'at al-Islamiyah, the forum for promoting peace in Muslim societies. And finally, Sheikh Ahmad Tayyib is the rector of Al-Azhar, the most influential Islamic seminary, not only in Egypt, but also in the Muslim world. They are supporting the coup, but the level of their support is different. I need to explain this. For example, Ahmad Tayyib stood behind Assisi when he made an announcement, but he made a distance when Sisi, killed 1,000 people, protesters. For him is unjustified. So his legal opinion is different than that of Ali Jum'ah. And his position is only until that level. He never justified, military coup with any other reasons. Only by quoting irtikab akhafat dararain. I'm justifying the coup because it is the lesser of two evil. This is basically his position. And of course, their discourse is different from Ali Jum'ah. Ali Jum'ah is the most active one. I would say the most terrible one.
Extremists.
Yeah, extreme one. So I cannot lump them together, but they did justify the coup. If you are interested in the global link of the justifiers of the coup, you can read this article by Usama Azomi, a scholar in Oxford. It's called A Preliminary Mapping of the Transnational Networks of Counter-Revolutionary Scholars After the Arab Revolution. Basically, he's telling the biography of these scholars, these people. Now, still talking about the justifiers of the coup. We are now moving to Salafi scholars. What is Salafi? Salafism is methodology. I think it's not a proper way. I mean, it's incorrect to define Salafism as a group, specific group. Salafism is a methodology to understand Islam as religion. And within Salafism, there are subdivisions, but they share these four attitudes. This is their general methodology. Number one, they expose the teachings and the beliefs of the pious predecessors. Always the claim that we need to follow the example of three earliest generation in Islam, which is the generation of the companion, generation of successor, and the successor of the successor. This three generation lived after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. So their claim is that we need to follow the teachings of pious predecessors, and they favor the purity of belief in the interpretation of Islam. For example, in the medieval period, Muslim scholars, when they try to justify Islamic theology, they borrow the methodology from Hellenistic civilization. They use logic, they use philosophy. But Salafis, I mean, this methodology reject that approach. We just rely on the text. We don't need philosophy to justify our creed. So again, this is a general methodology of Salafi, and then against religious innovation, including Sufi order, including, borrowing foreign methodology from foreign civilization is considered as a bid'ah. But you have many branches within Salafism. I would suggest, if you want to know more about this tendency, you can read an article by Dr. Yasir Qadi. It's called On Salafi Islam. I think the way he explains Salafism brings nuance. He avoids lumping them together. So he divide, or he makes 7 classification of Salafism. Number 1, mainstream Saudi Salafism. They are royal to the kingdom. Mostly they are Hanbalite, and they are apolitical, quietists. And then Sheikh Albani Salafism, Jordanian scholar. Their approach emphasized everything needs to be based on the evidence of hadith. And then Sahwah movement, which is a political Salafi in Saudi Arabia. The most prominent persons of this group is Sheikh Salman Al-Auda, who is currently in the prison, and the Madkhali. Anybody familiar with this term? Madkhalism. How do you characterize Madkhalism?
The, the by strictly following rulers against any type of public, rejection of the leadership,
Yeah.
even if the whips you in your back and stuff like that.
Yeah. Then what is the difference between Madkholism and mainstream Saudi Salafism? Because they all support authority.
Follow the chef.
All right. But in terms of methodology, go ahead.
I think they are even reluctant to even criticizing the ruler, not only rebellion against him. So they are totally supporting the ruler.
And the first group is not supporting the ruler. How to differentiate between mainstream Saudi Salafism and the Madkhali? Their rhetoric is divisive. This is what I would say as the main character of the Madkhali. They will always use a black campaign against any Islamist. In the Egyptian case, the preacher of Madkhali, the follower of Madkhali, made a black campaign against An-Nur party, and then made black campaign against the Muslim Brotherhood. For them, the enemy is any Muslim who is entering the political field, who playing in the political field. So their rhetoric is very divisive. That is the difference between Madkholism and mainstream Saudi Salafism. Number 5, Egyptian Salafism. This is totally new trend coming out of the Arab Spring. So Arab Spring is always interesting phenomenon. And then Takfiri Salafism, who is someone who is willing to excommunicate a ruler for not implementing law. And the last one is radical jihadi Salafis, someone who even willing to wage war against ruler, Muslim rulers, non-Muslim rulers. ISIS and Al-Qaeda belong to this group. Belong to radical jihadi Salafis. Yes. Well, some people tend to lump all of them together as Wahhabism because they're all inspired by a scholar by the name Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. They have a positive respect to Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. So Wahhabism sometimes is considered as same as Salafism. But we need to keep in mind that at least we have 7 branches of Salafism. If you want to understand, Muslim society, we need to understand these trends. Now, 2 Salafi scholars that I'm going to explain is coming from the Madkhali trend and Egyptian Salafist trend. This is Yasser Burhami. Anybody familiar with Yasser Burhami? You? Can you? My research about you just on the surface. If you want to explain more.
Yeah, and he's a very famous Salafi scholar, and he was like very apolitical. So he was not, he didn't participate in the political landscape in Egypt before 2011 revolution. And he was against democracy, against participating in the democratic process completely. But after the political opportunity provided after 2011 revolution, he participated in democracy and he changed his opinions and established a political party, which is Hizb al-Nur. He is the most powerful person in Jamaat al-Dawah Salafiyya, which is considered as the Hizb al-Nur is considered as the political wing of Jamaat al-Dawah Salafiyya, and he is not the leader of Jamaat al-Dawah Salafiyya, but he is the most influential and the most powerful person in this Hizb al-Nur. So he's now Hizb al-Nur now has like some participation in the parliament, Egyptian parliament, and Yasser Burhami totally supports the coup and is against the Muslim Brotherhood because historical clashes with the Muslim Brotherhood in the past.
Yeah, thank you for giving us the context. Initially, he is a medical doctor. He has a degree from School of Medicine, but he has also a degree in Islamic law, in Sharia. He was a very apolitical, quietist, but then he established his Nur party, and he got 27% of the ballot in the first election after 2011. It is significant number, and he made an alliance with Muslim Brotherhood with Mursi, the ousted president, but there was a split because of the issue of division of the seat in the parliament. Then when the coup happened, he was the strong supporter of the coup, and I'm highlighting his rationality, his justification. Again, he is quoting Islamic intellectual tradition. I mentioned you the concept of at-taghallub bishawka. For him, Assisi is a usurper, and he had met the qualification for being a usurper because Islamic legal doctrine justify usurpation, then he is willing to accept it as well. The second justification, the removal of Mursi can stop the ensuing chaos in Egypt. Number three, more people protesting than voting him to be a president. Well, he's playing with the game of people who are involved in the Tamarut movement, 30 million. He's not saying 30 million, but he said it's bigger, more significant than the people who chose Mursi as a president in the election. And then this is the last logic used by Burhami. An-Nur must exist to ensure the presence of Islamic Party in the parliament. So if we deny the coup, we'll get the same thing, the crackdown by Assisi as well. So no Islamic Party will sit in the parliament, no Muslim party will, guide the process in the parliament, political process. This is his logic. Now, entering the second Salafi person, Ruslan. Now, are you familiar with Muhammad Ruslan? Go ahead.
Yeah, he's like is one of the Madkhali Salafism, and he is one of the governors of Egypt, which is not close to the capital, but he has popularity in Manufia, popularity, and he is very extreme regarding supporting the coup and General Sisi, and he was like praying against the Muslim Brotherhood and supported removal of Muhammad Morsi and even propagating towards Sisi's projects like the new Suez Canal and such. So
New
he's-
capital,
Sorry?
new
And
capital.
no capital, yes, as well. So he's, and he's not, by the way, he's not wealthy. He's very like Sufis, but he's not Sufi, but he's living very poor village and very poor house. So
Yeah.
that's what I.
That his support to Sisi is part of his ethical conviction. He is supporting not for material interests because of his theological position. And for him, interestingly, democracy is a system of infidels that can lead to disbelief. It's basically why he's rejecting Muslim Brotherhood, because Muslim Brotherhood entering the field of democracy. And he doesn't stop here. He opposed not only Muslim Brotherhood, actually, also Hizbun Nur, right? He opposed Hizbun Nur. Any party with Islamic platform. For him, these parties have damaged the image of Islam, and this is his logic: establishing a party equals to making division among the Muslim society. This is his strange position. Even if a leader is unjust and corrupt, he must still be obeyed. Well, it's not very surprising because this is the mandate of Islamic intellectual legacy. If you open the book of law in the past, the book of imamate, the leadership, there will always be a statement: we have to obey whoever rule us, even though he is unjust ruler. And he reversed his stand to the position of Ahmad, an eponym of Hanbali Madhab, and a figure who is widely seen as a reference by the Salafi activists. Not only did he support the military overthrow of Mursi, Ruslan also forbade election that would allow anyone to challenge Assisi as Egypt's leader. So don't vote, just keep Sisi being the president as long as he wants. Now, this is totally different position, the deniers of the coup. Yusuf Al-Qaradawi is very well known, passed away last year. He established institution called Ittihad Ulama Al-Muslimin, or International Union of Muslim Scholars. He's Egyptian, but I would say live in exile, as an exile in Qatar. In Qatar. Before 2011, he is allowed to enter Egypt, but just to give, seminar. He is not allowed to give a sermon, for example, to reach a wider audience. He's allowed to go to the hotel, for example, or to the building with, specific or with less people. Khalid Abu Fadl, I'll talk about him later. This is the reasoning of Yusuf Al-Qaradawi. Number one, he made a discourse to refute Ali Jum'ah. For him, Ali Jum'ah has distorted Islamic intellectual legacy, not being honest with the position of Al-Juwayni. This is not the position of Al-Juwayni. And for him, even though we can find the notion of usurpation of power or military coup justified in Islamic intellectual legacy, it is always considered as an exception. It is not considered as a general norm. But Ali Jum'ah plays military coup as if it is general norm. Again, he attacked Ali Jum'ah for tazif, counterfeiting the Prophet's tradition about the Western army. Not only him, any other scholars of hadith will always consider this hadith as weak, not reliable to quote. And this is his critique to Gom'a's discourse on cracking down or the massacre of Mursi followers. For Jum'ah again, the army is justified to kill the protesters because they insist to restore, and they also cause instability in the country. I don't know. Do you remember the Egyptian word when he says kill them? Idrib fil million. Remember this phrase? Idrib fil million. Shoot in the chest, right? Is that the meaning, the translation of idrib fil million?
Yeah, yeah. Directly target them.
Yeah, idrib fil million. Kill them, they sting. And Qardawi refute this discourse. If we open the Islamic legal tradition about rebellion, rebels have never been treated like that. This is a doctrine in Islamic legal book. A ruler should not crush his political opponents by directly using physical force, let alone shooting them until death. So, and this is my argument as well. Even though Ali Jum'ah relies on Islamic intellectual tradition, but his legal opinion is actually the product of modernity. It is modernity that allows him to imagine a state that can intervene, can co-opt, can coerce, can use violence without restriction. It is the product of modernity, because in the book of Islamic legal tradition, in Islam, there always be a restriction to treat the rebels. A ruler should advise them first. And it is not considered as a sin. It's just a political crime. And this is again another critique of Qardawi. Ali Jum'ah embraced Islamic exceptionalism. Muslim societies, Islamic countries, impossible to embrace true and healthy democracy because of the rationality of Ali Jum'ah. The justification that Ali Jum'ah made is things that make healthy democracy become impossible in Muslim societies. And for him, legitimacy of Mursi prevails. Number one, because he won the election through a clean and fair election. Al-Muntakhab bi irada al-Ummah. Mursi was elected based on the sovereignty of the constitution. Mursi and his party had an Islamic platform against secularism. You can read this quickly. All right. This is the global link of Al-Qardawi. Scholars, prominent scholars that support him. Muhammad Imara and Sheikh Hassan As-Safi are actually Egyptian scholars, but they are very influential outside Egypt. And the rest of these scholars are living outside Egypt. Anybody knows the colleague up there? Ahmad Ar-Rasuni. He is the successor of Al-Qardawi for the International Union of Muslim Scholars. And this one is the current president of International Union of Muslim Scholars. He's an Iraqi scholar, Moroccan scholars, but he's living as a Qatari citizen. And this particular organization is strong supporter of Muhammad Mursi, strong supporter of legitimacy of Mursi. Interestingly, Egyptian living outside Egypt, a professor in American university, intervened, made a discourse. He has a YouTube channel called Usul Institute. If you want to follow his political statement and his standpoint, you can listen to his lecture in their YouTube, in this YouTube. And this is his justification. The coup was a product of the history of military institution, not just the personal action of Assisi. The armed forces have a colonial spirit attached to themselves. A military coup destroys the ideals of civilian leadership and rejects the legitimacy that comes from ballots and the constitution. A return to military regime is a return to the much worse darkness of authoritarianism. Muslims have a brief history of leadership of the time of Khulafa al-Rashidun. In that early period, the establishment of leadership was always based on the people's consent. It is backwardness and stupidity in the modern period when everyone talks about clean, peaceful, and constitutional legitimate elections. The ulama from the Salafi and the Sufi groups still justify the acquisition of the power by violence. All right. Before we take a break, I'll just make a short comparison between these four scholars. Commonality between them, even though they have different political standpoints, but their commonality is that they rely on Islamic intellectual tradition. Therefore, Islamic intellectual tradition is always a source of authority and legitimacy of Muslim scholars. If your statement will be considered as authoritative, legitimate by society, then you need to rely on authority of the past. You cannot come up with something new, invent something new. Even if you want to invent something new, you need to attach it with the authority of the past. This is how the way Muslim thinks. And in anthropology, this concept is considered as Islam as a discursive tradition. To look at a Muslim society, don't just look at the material context, political situation, look at their reasoning, the way they think. And this is a very prominent theory in anthropology of religion. Anybody familiar with Al-Assad? Right? Okay. But the divergence from the pre-modern legal ordinance, I already explained about this issue, how Ali Jum'ah differed from classical or medieval position on rebellion. And interestingly, out of these 4 or 5 scholars, only Khalid Abu Fadil, who is willing to criticize Islamic intellectual tradition of usurpation. Even Al-Qardawi does not criticize intellectual authority in the past. He just doesn't want to apply it in the modern context. But Khalid Abu Fadil does criticize. For him, this is the weakness of Muslim history. We have the inheritance from the past, the concept of at-taghallub. If you want to proceed being a healthy democratic country, then you need to get rid of this concept, at-taghallub. Resonance with Western concept of legitimacy, I contend that the view of the justifiers of the coup resonates with what I call a tendency of violent legitimacy in Western political thought. True political power is power to dominate people. For example, I quote Machiavelli, a successful prince must be willing to use violence judiciously. And Carl Schmitt, anybody familiar with Carl Schmitt? German philosopher, political philosopher. A ruler has monopoly on determining what is needed to resolve the situation, including the decision to designate the domestic enemy. The justifiers of the coup are acting as the boosters of the authority of the state. They do not attempt to position themselves as balancers to rulers. Their discourse, even though relies on tradition, is a product of nation-state system that allows the state to coerce, control, and punish disloyal individuals. On the other hand, the view of deniers of the coup resonate with what I call a tendency of non-violent and procedural democracy in a Western tradition. Hans Kelsen, he's a legal scholar, is probably the most popular political philosopher who advocates the idea of legalism in democracy. All right, we stop here, take a break for 7 till 10 minutes. We'll be back at 12:25. Okay. All right, we have time until 12:40 or 12:45. Stop there. as I said, I go to the mosque for prayer. Feel free if you have any question, Q&A. Or if you want to add information, go ahead. You want to say something, Sam?
You have covered everything. Thank you very much yeah, for this help. Because I'm Egyptian and I'm here because of the military coup. I live here as a political refugee. I was
Oh,
a
yeah?
journalist in Egypt. So this was very helpful and you have covered everything. I'm not complimenting you. So I don't have anything, just.
You cannot come back to Egypt now?
No, for the rest of my life, I cannot. My mother passed away in COVID
Oh,
when I was here, and I couldn't even attend the morning. So
okay. Did you join the protest in 2013 to
Yes.
support Morsi?
I supported Morsi. I was in Saudi. I was working in Saudi Arabia at that time, and I supported Morsi. I was writing articles in one of the famous newspaper in Egypt. If you know Hezb al it's very famous. I was writing for the newspaper of Hezb al
Are you a journalist?
Yeah, I was a journalist. Now I stopped. I stopped everything about journalists. So I was writing like articles against the military coup, and they started to disseminate some news about me that I'm a terrorist and I'm one of the Muslim Brotherhood, a member of Muslim Brotherhood, and sometimes one of the Salafi jihadis. So they labeled me the all terms you can imagine.
Yeah.
That's why I came here, and they applied for asylum, and they provided all documents that now I'm like a terrorist in Egypt, and if I return to Egypt, I will be maybe executed because some of my friends were executed, and some of them are behind the bars now for about 11 years.
Wow.
Without
You know
any-
them personally?
Yeah, my friends. Yeah, they are friends. They were close friends. Some of them were excluded by fake charge, and some of them were executed in Rabaa sit-in.
Yeah.
As you know, he killed about 1,000 people in just one day, and they were sit in the sit-in at that time, and they opened fire against all protesters, even children, women, or. And as you know, these scholars justified the killings of people, the protesters. So yeah, some of my friends killed in the second, some were excluded, and some now behind bars for 11 years without any charge. So they can't see the judge. So it's a very distressful
Yeah.
stressful situation in Egypt, and people now are against the Sisi, but not because of his
He fired.
crimes, but because of the financial and economic
Dependence.
situation. Yeah. But they cannot protest because he enact a law against any protests without the permission of the government. Can you imagine this? You will take permission of the General Sisi. Please, I want to protest against you. Could you please give me the permission to do that? Okay, that's fine. So, yeah, it's very that's
Yeah.
I was thinking before coming in to apologize by email. I don't want to attend this lecture sometimes because
I know.
yeah.
I'm sorry because when I convey my thesis in front of my supervisor, one of them is Egyptian, and she said, "You just remind me the pain again."
Yeah,
And I mean, it's painful to listen to the story for some Egyptian. I had personal attachment to Egypt. I had emotional attachment. I did my bachelor in Egypt. I got my BA from Al Azhar as well. So I'm alumni from Islamic Seminary over there. But I don't want to follow the official stance of Al Azhar regarding the coup and how they are now being allied to the government. Just to show you that there's a nuance, diversity within Azhari colleagues or circle. Even Yusuf Al-Qaradawi himself is an Azhari. Even though the majority are pro-establishment, what I call in my thesis as structural ulama or structural Muslim scholars. And the other one is peripheral ulama because they are always in the periphery. And for your information, Mursi himself already passed away in prison, and the government doesn't allow people to pray for the Mursi. It's just even personal prayer. I mean, even making a prayer in the mosque is not permissible by the government of Egypt. That's the sad thing.
Yeah, he was deprived of even his medicine until he died. He was
Yeah.
in prison, and he was not allowed to see the judge. They put like glasses, a glass which is not reflective from outside. I can not put it in English, so the judge can see Morsi, but Morsi cannot see the judge or even the lawyers. He cannot hear the lawyers or the judge.
Yeah.
So it,
Yeah.
it was
Unfair trial.
yeah, totally. So my master's dissertation, as you know, about the
Yeah.
situation in Egypt. My this is the second master, by the way. I did one in 2019.
In here as well.
Yeah, in here as well, but Islamic studies, not Walid, not with Walid. I know that Walid and Islamic studies are.
At Divinity, you mean School of Divinity?
No, Islamic studies here, in the same school.
Okay.
And my PhD will be in Egypt as well. I proposed a proposal about Egypt. So my focus is on Egypt. It's like an attempt to support my people, my friends.
Yeah. That's the reason why I chose Egypt as my topic for my thesis, the PhD thesis. Many colleagues of mine suggest me, you better write something about Indonesia. No, I know Egypt and I know intellectual history. I read Arabic, I read those books, so I want to read something about Egypt with the perspective of intellectual history. Yeah. Any other question or someone say something? Otherwise, we stop here. Then thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I just said,